Chapter 69, 2. They're not for eating, unfortunately. I politely folded my hands under the table to hide the trembling. And it seems like we have similar tastes. Texture really is important. Oh, tilde comrade. The ghost-mimicking dolphin beamed. Supervisor Roe Deer doesn't seem like a ghost, talking so normally about food and all. Wow. I can't keep this up. If I stayed in this conversation any longer, there'd definitely come a moment I'd scream. Oh dear, Supervisor Roe Deer seems particularly sensitive to the uncanny valley effect. Such reactions are appreciated in an audience, though unfortunate in this situation. But worry not. Isn't having this brawn by your side the greatest comfort? Your friend is right here. Wait. That's right. What Braun said is right. A great host always adapts to the situation. Exactly. What I was experiencing now was a situation where fear had been heightened to the extreme by the uncanny valley effect. Fear when something looks human but isn't. In this ordinary break room, watching coworkers casually display grotesque, inhuman behaviors was deeply unsettling. And being the only human amplified the sheer terror. If that's the case, I glanced to the side. The lizard was casually eating a sandwich snack with the wrapper still on. Not particularly less scary. Even if he suddenly flicks his tongue, walks backward with a grin, or gets up and starts shaking his head while crazily dancing yet casually chatting, it's all the same. Because he was already terrifying. Because he already looked like a lizard. There's no longer any uncanny valley to feel. I'm sticking with the section chief no matter what. Finally, a solution appeared. Suppressing my cold sweat, I turned my chair naturally toward Chief Lizard, as if I had an urgent question to ask. Section Chief Lee Jahian. And I did genuinely have something I wanted to ask. According to in this ghost story, ghosts are identical to their companions in appearance, personality, and character. This means that if you ask something natural and unpressured, there's a high chance the answer will mirror that of the original. Unless they suddenly start acting ghostly, of course. This might even make it easier to ask. Since it wasn't really them. I pulled my chair closer, as if I wanted to have an open and honest conversation with a squad mate. I aimed to create an atmosphere that discouraged the other ghosts from interrupting, and it seemed to work. Then I asked, "We don't usually have time to chat during work. Would it be all right if I asked you a few things now?" "Yes." "Thank you. I was wondering, how did you become so strong, Section Chief?" "Right." Thankfully, Lee Jahian didn't seem annoyed. It's the result of a combination of innate factors and acquired learning. The perfect, universal answer for any question. It felt like asking the top student how they aced their exams only to hear, "I studied hard with my good brain." I want to hear more details, though. With anyone else, this might be a brush-off, but with Chief Lizard, it's hard to tell. I decided to play along and smiled sheepishly before responding. "I see. I asked because I'd like to improve my strength too, without relying on items or contamination. Follow a protein-based diet and combine aerobic and anaerobic exercise. Will doing that make me as strong as you?" "No." "Excuse me, I can already muster strength proportional to my physique." I almost gave my superior a look of incredulity. "If you have any other advice for me, I'd love to hear it." "Yes, Supervisor Roe Deer, you have other strengths. Focus on developing those." The lizard spoke dryly. "No individual excels in all areas. Don't waste resources on inefficient or unnecessary things. Use others to your advantage." "Wait a second. Are you saying that when strength is needed, I should rely on you for that role, and instead focus on honing my own strengths?" "Yes." The lizard nodded. Your strengths lie in creativity and decision-making, Mr. Roe Deer. Thank you. Well, should I consider this high praise? It's definitely better than being told to handle everything on my own. I'm grateful, of course. Still, it feels like a missed opportunity. I debated for a moment, then decided to dig a little deeper. However, we do occasionally enter darknesses alone. Strength is a universal and effective means, so I feel I might need it for situations like that. I see. The lizard stared into the void for a moment, as if in deep thought, before giving a confirming nod. I'll introduce you to an item. The jackpot. Does it enhance strength? Something similar. Use it as a parent item when crafting a new special equipment. Thank you. I'd been meaning to enhance or expand my dedicated equipment anyway. At least I gained something from this. Even amidst a ghost story full of ghosts, while sweating bullets, I managed to obtain something. Wait. Come to think of it, the lizard sitting in front of me isn't even the real Lee Jahian. It's a ghost. Can I really trust this promise? I panicked for a moment, but recalled the manual. People who were replaced by ghosts retain indirect memories of what occurred within the enclosed space. Given Lee Jahian's personality, he was highly likely to keep the promise. That settled. Phew. Accomplishing something gave me a sense of achievement, even if I had to endure terror. Let's use this sense of accomplishment to push through the fear. Pretending to stretch, I avoided looking at the two C-Squad ghosts who were now doing handstands and grinning eerily at me. At this point, I didn't care who among them introduced me to the salmon market. Empty your mind. I kept making small talk with the lizard, avoiding direct interactions with the ghosts. The ghost posing as Chief Lizard couldn't get up to anything mischievous because I kept bombarding him with questions, forcing him to respond endlessly. I learned a profound fact, that the section chief prefers beef over pork. Friend, this seems less like an interview and more like a tedious amateur biography investigation. I know Brana, but what choice do I have? When even that small talk ran dry, I pretended to doze off, playing word games with Braun, who was in my pocket to pass the time. No matter what nonsense echoed in my ears, I stuck to one response. Sorry, I'm too tired. Let's continue this conversation after we're out. It's 3 a.m. Please let this end. I felt like I was drowning in cold sweat, but no emergency occurred. Clutching Braun in my pocket, I survived the harrowing hours that felt like an eternity. Then, click. Finally, the pantry door opened. I had endured the entire night alone. Done. I made it, damn it. I wanted to stand up and punch the air in triumph despite my foggy mind. I can feel tears in my eyes. It was the first time I had endured ghostly horror this raw and alone, without cutting corners. It felt like I had overcome a personal limit. I should give myself a pat on the back. I wobbled as I stood. No one knew how much of a struggle even a D-class challenge was for me, and that was a relief. Mr. Roe Deer. The H-huh. Turning my head, I saw the lizard calmly standing there, wide awake. He looked fine, as if he had never stayed up all night. Wait. He's awake. As section chief. There's no need to wait for the members of C-Squad to wake up. You may clock out. I stared at the lizard, perfectly upright, and then turned to look at the sprawled, sleeping C-Squad members. No way. You weren't a ghost last night. I was not. You were clapping with the backs of your hands, though. The lizard tilted his head, then seemed to realize something and replied. I thought it was a popular trend. The situation quickly settled afterward. Or rather, it could not settle. The lizard had doubts about my earlier behavior. Mr. Roe dear, were your questions last night intended to engage in lengthy conversation with a ghost because you mistook me for one? That moment was genuinely spine-chilling. How could that be? I was simply keeping both possibilities in mind after seeing you clapping with the backs of your hands, sir. And I raised an imaginary thumbs up toward the respected superior. That means I smoothed it over with flattery. I couldn't afford to miss the first chance to have an in-depth conversation with you, even if it meant risking a misunderstanding. I see. Thank you for kindly consulting with me for such a long time. Yes. Phew. For the record, the C-Squad members, who had slept peacefully through the night, woke up before Lee Jahian and I left. They chuckled casually. Tilda, it just had to be the two of you, huh? What a coincidence. Wow, that must have been really scary. Right, pretty chilling, Tilda. Liars. Watching them laugh as they recalled the things the ghosts imitating them had done, I was once again struck by how bold the so-called elites of this company were. Oh, before I forget. Now's my chance to figure out who referred me to the salmon market. Would it be all right if I ask for your names, please? Of course. Supervisor Dolphin raised her hand energetically. I'm Supervisor Lee Seong-hee, and over there is Assistant Manager Kang Da-jun. Huh? Wait a second. The assistant manager who introduced me to the salmon market was, by any chance, is C-Squad's manager named Lee Kang-hyun? No. I've been had. No wonder that person had been so quick to share their information. They were all lies. They must have counted on the fact that the elite units, A, B, and C, are off-limits for direct contact via the company directory for regular employees. Well, it didn't really matter. It just made me glad I'd created an alternate ID to bypass their scheme. As I was about to wrap up the conversation with some casual remark along the lines of, I must have confused that person with someone else. Pardon me, Supervisor Roe dear. While Assistant Manager Leopard was talking to Section Chief Lee Jahian, Supervisor Dolphin suddenly turned to me, speaking in a hushed tone. By any chance, did you also get a Katalk message about making money? From someone with a Hawaii Beach background on their profile. Famous, huh? Is it a word-of-mouth thing? Supervisor Dolphin glanced at her colleague to ensure they weren't paying attention, then quickly continued. Well, I was also the top recruit in my batch when I joined. They contacted me too. That fish bears eat a lot of salmon market. Yeah, salmon market. So she'd been fished, or maybe fished too. I've heard a few other promising recruits got contacted as well. According to her, the identity of the sender varied each time, but two details always matched. K. Lee, oh hello Mr./MS, employee Lalo. The profile photo and the name K. Lee. Supervisor Dolphin whispered conspiratorially. Want to hear my theory? Of course. I think the site admin sent it. Like, they're recruiting people to sell actual items from the darknesses on their second-hand platform. Oh? You think the site was created by a company employee? They must at least be connected. They knew way too much about the field exploration team. Interesting. I rubbed my chin. If such an employee really exists. A named character. I mentally sifted through the profiles in the company wiki for employees who might pull something like this. Thank you, that clears up some of my questions. No problem. Supervisor Dolphin grinned and shrugged. By the way, are there that many employees using salmon market within the company? Quite a few, actually. The company doesn't care as long as we're not selling dream essence collectors or masks. It's like how looting gets overlooked in wartime to keep soldiers' morale up. Supervisor Dolphin grumbled. Honestly, this company is so annoying. I nodded without thinking. There's definitely a tendency to disregard human casualties. Well, I mean, technically, people dying is eco-friendly, so whatever. But it's the randomness that bugs me. If it were me, I'd send them off in order of personality. I think I'm scared of the C-Squad. Anyway, that's just my take. Thank you. No worries. Supervisor Dolphin tied her long hair into a ponytail and answered cheerfully. You know, you were so polite even when I was a ghost, Supervisor Roe dear. I think good people should live long. She gave me a thumbs up and a bright smile. Thank you. In the end, I parted ways with C-Squad on a relatively pleasant note. Next time, let's meet in a darkness that gives lots of points. We'll show you how awesome we are then. And it'd be even better if only the person giving us points shows up. Ha ha ha. I'd rather not encounter the greatness of the elite unit in darkness. Still, working with C-Squad seemed smoother and less friction-filled compared to S-Squad. Of course, C-Squad also appeared to have a certain sense of elitism, but that could be chalked up to being an inherent trait of elite units. Except for the endless replaying in my head of the shocking ghost version C-Squad I saw today. Let's go home. Let's indulge in the luxury of sleeping while the sun's still up in the sky. Feeling a small sense of gratitude for having the day off, I bowed to Lee Jahian. Squad leader, thank you for today. Once again, I appreciate you patiently answering my questions in the chaos of the darkness. Yes. Please feel free to ask me anything in return anytime, squad leader. Yes, then I'll ask now. Already? Lee Jahian asked bluntly. Supervisor Kim Solium, have you used the Fox counseling room before? That was one of 3 locations I gained access to after becoming a supervisor. 1 security team rentals warehouse. 2 annex, 2 free equipment customizations per year. 3 Fox counseling office. It was the only one I hadn't used yet. No, I haven't. Of course, I hadn't had the time or opportunity. Do you plan to use it? Squad leader, you're suggesting the Fox counseling room to help me recover from the psychological effects of contamination, correct? Yes, I recommend scheduling a session soon. That was reasonable advice. Except for one issue. There's a side effect to that place. The Fox counseling room had a severe, unwritten side effect not mentioned in the employee manual. Granted, it was a very low probability, so regular employees didn't need to worry about it. Still, I didn't want to take that risk, no matter how small. With everything that's happened lately, I'm a bit tired of dealing with probabilities. Think I can manage for now. Unless I deliberately think about strange inner whispers or a sudden urge to read the employee handbook, such feelings didn't surface. Nights could be rough until I fell asleep, but having someone to talk to made it manageable. That someone being Braun. Goodness, what an honor, friend. Yup. Never would I have imagined a monster from a ghost story could feel like such a lifeline. Humans are truly creatures of adaptation, aren't we? Anyway, since I had the day off today and could sleep during the day, I figured I could compensate for my lack of sleep this way. Of course, outwardly, I nodded politely. Yes, I'll schedule it when I have the time. Though that time might not come for a while, maybe even months. But hey, I wasn't lying. Yes. Chief Lizard stared at me for a moment before nodding and leaving. And with that, I returned home safely. Who? Click. I entered my room. The official building was quiet, probably because everyone else was at work. Beak Sahian wasn't around either. Time to sleep. After washing up, I lay on my bed, intending to check the latest information and websites one last time, and immediately lost all thoughts of sleep. It's open. The alien shop had finished its renewal and launched a new homepage. The colorful screen stabbed at my eyes as I clicked on it. I'll take a look at the items. Grand reopening sale. Shocking prices. Wow, really shocking. The design, I mean. How could it look even worse? As pixelated fireworks burst across the screen, the increasing colors and effects made it even more hideous. If these aliens were outsourcing their design work, someone needed to intervene. Mr. Roe dear, please have mercy on this host and move me far away from that awful advert. I gladly propped Braun on a towel on the desk. I'd endure this design terror alone. Anyway, a grand reopening sale sounds like a good opportunity. It might even mean more products were available now. Excited, I clicked the entry button. Items. Happy Maker, 27,999,999. Nostalgia Candy, 12,999,999. Rapper 12B357, Kona, Inus, 9,999,999. Necronomicon, 49,999,999. We Can Help, 66,666,666. Buy over 100 million and get a 20% discount. Become a Space Shopping Mall VIP. Then, wait a minute. It's here. Mr. Roe dear. I nearly jumped out of bed in excitement, but managed to calm myself. The armor finally showed up. Oh, you found the item you were looking for. Congratulations. Absolutely. Rapper 12B357, Kona, Inus, 9,999,999. I have to buy this no matter what. It was even the cheapest item. What kind of jackpot was this? I added it to my cart, and only then realized it was 10 million won, momentarily struck by reality. But canceling the purchase, not a chance. As I tried to calm down and scrolled through the rest of the items. Then, friend, did something happen? No. It was the opposite, actually. I checked the list again, a bit startled, but it was real. I recognize all of these items. That was a first. Even when an item wasn't listed in there was at least a brief mention that allowed me to make a reasonable guess. Granted, some items seemed so ominous they bordered on ghost story material, but since they were just descriptions for now, I could still focus on their usefulness and applications. This is amazing. And then I noticed a peculiar mark next to some items. Happy Maker, 27,999,999. What does this star mean? When I hovered my finger over it, a description popped up. Similar to something you've purchased before. Oh, these aliens, so this is why they revamped the site. They'd implemented an algorithm. Items related to past purchases were marked with stars and listed at the top. But shouldn't it work the other way around? For clothing, I could understand, but why would I buy a similar item? It might work for consumables that could run out, though. Like this one. Nostalgia Candy, 12,999,999. The Nostalgia series. It was from the same place as the red yarn control gear that had been wrapped around my wrist during my time in the security team's isolation room. A series themed around returning to a better time in the past. Since this was candy, it probably had a similar effect when consumed. Looks like it showed up because I'd bought several edible products before, similar to the Snow White Mountain apples. This is a must-buy, especially since I was almost out of those mini apples, whether in juice or pill form. I immediately added it to my cart and continued browsing the rest of the list. Painkillers, healing items, armor, intimidation tools, escape items. And then it hit me. These are all good. Every single one was practical. Knowing their uses made it easy to discern their value. And then, of course, buy over 100 million and get a 20% discount. A discount, huh? Opportunities like this don't come often. When I combined my salary, extra earnings, performance bonuses, and subtracted living expenses, my available funds came to up to 140 million. No, maybe even 150 million. Friend, are you managing to enjoy shopping despite that visual torment? No. It's over. I looked at my cart. Happy Maker, 27,999,999. Nostalgia Candy, 12,999,999. Rapper 12B357, Kona, Inus, 9,999,999. Necronomicon, 49,999,999. We Can Help, 66,666,666 equals 167, 666, 662. Discount applied. 134, 133, 329. Let's go. Buy every single thing. I had just purchased everything from the alien shop. Wow. My hands trembled slightly. It was the first time I'd blown 130 million won on a few items. Approx. 90,000 USD. Still, having spent millions a few times before, I was a bit more used to it. Let's make the most of this. It would all serve as stepping stones for survival. I boldly hit the checkout button. Purchase successful. Your item is on a rocket. Soon, just like before, a spatial rift opened midair and a delivery box appeared. With a pounding heart, I waited for the box to drop to the ground. But the package remained suspended in midair. Someone was holding it, gently and politely. With tentacles. The tentacles softly shook the delivery box as if asking, "Here, is this okay? Please place it on the ground." The package was smoothly set down with care. "Thank you very much." But the tentacles didn't disappear immediately. Instead, they swiftly retrieved something from the spatial rift and handed it to me. A small, golden shimmering card. "I'm a Space Shopping Mall VIP. Special thanks included." "Thank you." When I accepted the card, the tentacle waved, almost like it was saying goodbye, before retreating back into the rift. It seemed the alien shop had decided to treat me as a VIP. That's a good thing, right? I decided to keep the gratitude card. It shimmered brightly in golden hues. Good heavens, how could even a tag card look so appallingly designed? Apparently, expecting decent design from the alien shop was a mistake. I mean, the important thing is functionality. I turned my attention to the delivery box. It was time for the unboxing. When I opened the box, the first thing I saw was the largest item. A product priced at 28 million won. Happy Maker. The pastel-toned box was cheerful and colorful, like something containing liquid antacid or vitamin drinks. Inside were 12 glowing sticks, about the size of highlighters. However, needles protruded from the ends of these glowing sticks. An impeccable painkiller that was sold under the same name in the Ghost Story Delusion Home Shopping. Dark Exploration Records / Delusion Home Shopping / items. Happy Maker. Is life painful? Do you dread sleepless nights caused by mysterious ache or fear accidents? Introducing your perfect savior, Happy Maker, a rapid pain eliminator. September 9, 20XX, item description from Delusion Home Shopping. It was exactly as described. I looked at the instructions on the box. A quick and comforting shot. Say goodbye to pain. The stick-type auto-injector pressed against the skin would automatically administer a shot that eliminated pain completely for a set period of time. This is true over technology. Although the mechanism wasn't scientific, but rather paranormal, it didn't change the fact that pain could cloud judgment in extreme situations. Based on my experiences navigating countless injuries and threats, I could confidently say this would come in handy someday. I hope I never have to use it, I decided to let go of wishful thinking. This damned creepypasta world. Resolving to carry the item carefully, I noted a tiny, unsettling addendum to its usage on the back. In irreversible situations, use for euthanasia. Nope, absolutely not. I'll only ever use it as a painkiller. Painkillers. I used to take headache pills myself. The agony of creation, such is the fate of an entertainer and show creator. How would a ghost story resident with a TV for a head even take headache pills? No, let's not imagine that. I hurriedly erased the mental image and gave Braun a few compliments to lift his spirits before turning back to the box. Phew. Next item. 2 items caught my attention simultaneously. One was a dusty, ominous book sealed completely with dark red wax. The other, rolled up neatly in the corner, was a modern, eco-friendly packaging material. As literal as it gets, it was packaging material that functioned as an item itself. Wrapper 12B357, Kona Inus. The wrapper bore an engraved barcode and description, but lacked any further instructions. Looks simple, right? Wrong. Here it is, armor. A unique armor-like buffering material. This packaging material would prove to be my lifeline. I carefully stored it away, resolving to use it only when necessary. Then I turned my gaze back to the box. Necronomicon. The sealed, dark red, wax-covered book glared at me ominously. Necronomicon. The infamous Book of the Dead. A quintessential example of a magical tome of forbidden knowledge. It's a staple in countless stories spanning decades, so much so that it's become synonymous with all things evil and arcane. Of course, it was listed in the, and now here it was in my hands. Let's review the typical cliches associated with the Necronomicon. 1. Reading it drives you insane. 2. It's bound in human skin. Right. Bound in human skin. The book's cover, beneath the red wax, subtly revealed grotesque, twisted faces, as if preserved in eternal torment. It was the last thing I wanted to touch. Mr. Roe dear, did I hear you say Necronomicon? Oh, that old translated classic, such a delight to recall. Of course, Braun, the host of an American-themed talk show, recognized it. That wasn't even surprising anymore. But sadly, this is not the Necronomicon you're thinking of. It's something worse. Without another word, I carefully tucked the wax-sealed Necronomicon into my arm tattoo inventory. Phew. That took care of my intimidation tool. Next, I turned to the nostalgia candy, a familiar item that I knew would be invaluable. This was my emergency recovery tool. If I ever found myself dangerously contaminated, it could stabilize me until I reached safety. This will be a lifesaver. Finally, my attention returned to the smallest item in the package, a red button. Its design was simple, almost cartoonishly so. There was no doubt this had to be. We can help. 66,666,666. Ever hear of those creepy internet stories? The kind where someone gives you a button and says, press this and someone somewhere dies but you'll receive 1 billion. Would you do it? This button seemed straight out of one of those tailies. On closer inspection, faint text was engraved along the edges. What does this say? Need a translation. Friend. With Braun's help, I deciphered the text. Emergency escape. So, pressing this activates an alien-assisted emergency escape. It sounded straightforward, but at 66 million won, it was an expensive gamble. Let's hope it's worth it. Sure, it was a leap of faith, but I trusted the alien shop's reputation. If this button had come from another ghost story, I'd be worried that pressing it might eject my brain and serve it up as dinner. But the alien shop, I'd take my chances. That's everything. Ah, my meticulous friend, such admirable organization. I carefully stored all my purchases in the tattoo inventory, confident that they'd stay safe until I needed them. Not that I wanted to prove the inventory's reliability again. No use dwelling on it. Thankfully, the unboxing hadn't taken up the entire day. I had just enough time to catch up on some much-needed sleep. But before I could even rest, my comm device buzzed. Go Yeonjun, have you checked the intranet? Go Yeonjun, the regular personnel transfer notice just went up. The regular personnel transfers. That meant the vacant position in D Squad was about to be filled. Then, who will it be? A few days later. Hello. Oh yes, yes. I found myself face to face with a newly assigned D Squad employee at the office. The position was the same as mine, supervisor. He seemed to be around my age before I got involved in all this ghost story nonsense. The bespectacled employee glanced me up and down briefly. Ah, so you're that supervisor, the one promoted in just 60 days. Yes. Then you're basically still a rookie, huh? Then I silently stared at him. Oh, Tilda, look at that glare. What? You expect to be treated the same as a supervisor with 3 years under their belt? He smirked. Of course not. I look forward to working with you, Sunbi Nim. Sure, hey, I heard you're pretty quick on the uptake. Hello. You know, in the field exploration team, it's all about teamwork, you know, the key to surviving, reading the room, got it. Is that so? If you go around whining about being promoted early and demanding to be treated like a senior, you'll just end up marked and left to die without help. That kind of thing happens all the time. He scanned the office lazily. I heard the assistant manager and supervisor who used to work here both lost their hands and got contaminated. That could be you next. Then I turned my head slightly to look at the one clean, empty desk in the office. That had been Supervisor Park Min-seong's desk. A few days ago, I came in to find all his personal items, cups and picture frames had already disappeared, just a day after the new personnel announcement went up. True, it could be you, Supervisor. What? The work here is dangerous enough. I'll do my best to assist you so that doesn't happen. I'll be in your care. I politely extended my hand for a handshake. Ugh. The employee, who had been eyeing me with a faintly unpleasant expression, must have decided it was just his imagination and shook my hand. Shortly after, another voice rang out. Squad Leader, Supervisor Yoon Jo-hoon reporting for duty. I look forward to working with you. The lizard-like Lee Jae-hyun, our squad leader, nodded briefly at our new squad mate. Yes. Haha, did you know our initials are the same? It must be fate for me to work under you, squad leader. Tien. In Korean, the surnames are Hangul Ko Ienus, Lee and Ko Yoon Enus, Yoon. That's why Jo-hoon mentioned same initials. Technically, in modern Korean, Lee is pronounced more like Yi, too. Yes. No, I mean, doesn't it feel like destiny? No. Then Yoon Jo-hoon, the new addition to our squad, failed miserably at small talk. As soon as the squad leader left for a meeting, Yoon sidled up to me, whispering conspiratorially, "Hey, is D-Squad's leader like mentally not all there or something? I heard rumors." "Is that how he seems to you?" "You don't see it. Were we even talking to a person back there? It felt like chatting with some free AI." He let out a long sigh. "Damn, this company's already enough to drive you insane, and we get stuck with a leader like that. What's the deal with him?" Squad leader Lee Jae-hyun is attentive to his squadmates' well-being. "So what? You still die if it comes to that, right? And if he's out there doing his own thing in the darkness, no wonder A Squad's leader hates him. That rumor's true, isn't it?" "That it is, huh? You'd better watch yourself too. Seriously, of all squads." Yoon Jo-hoon grumbled something about needing the restroom, and then didn't come back for nearly half an hour. "That do I really have to work with people like these?" "Oh dear, you seem to be in low spirits, Mr. Roe dear. Would you like assistance from your good friend, Braun? You know I am always ready to help. Just say the word and I'll gladly. Let's watch some variety shows together after work." Now that sounds delightful. The conversation helped calm my mood a bit. Right. To be fair, I'd been ridiculously lucky with colleagues before. This is what life in a company is normally like, after all. At least these supervisors weren't a step above me in the corporate ladder. For that, I was thankful. I quickly composed myself and moved on. Later that afternoon, Lee Jae-hyun returned from his meeting, holding a PDF file for distribution. "We'll now begin the briefing for tomorrow's entry into a darkness." The newly added Yoon Jo-hoon recoiled in horror. "Undetermined grade. What is this, some undocumented darkness?" "No." The lizard turned his vertical pupils on Yoon Jo-hoon. "Each time it's cleared, the grade of the liquid in the dream essence collector changes." An anomaly. Then why isn't this assigned to an elite unit instead of a regular unit like D-Squad? It's not limited to D-Squad. All regular squads under the Field Exploration Team are attempting entry. Lee Jae-hyun turned his gaze toward me. "This darkness is entered through dreams, and the chance of successful entry is low. Here are the basics. On a full moon night, read a specific book and fall asleep. You may wake up in a school at night." "Wait a minute. If the school's name is Sekwang Technical High School, you've successfully entered the darkness." Sekwang Technical High School. I knew this ghost story, but it wasn't just a matter of knowing it. This is a ghost story I'm directly involved in. Exploration Record 13. The 13th entry in the Dark Exploration Records. I was the one who wrote it, a ghost story set in a school. It's a concept with ancient roots, passed down over generations. When hundreds of teenagers are confined to a single building for hours on end, it's only natural that eerie rumors, strange rituals, or ghost stories start circulating. The Seven Wonders, Bunchen Saba rituals. Of course, having gone through school myself, I always thought those were pretty entertaining. Isn't it a classic, widely appealing horror narrative? That's why I was bold enough to contribute to the exploration records for the first time. Luckily, my entry didn't get bombarded with not recommended votes, and it stayed up. Encouraged by that, I even ended up crafting and posting an entirely original ghost story. But now, I'm actually going in there. The idea gave me a strange feeling. Sure, hearing about entering a ghost story was chilling enough to make my spine tingle, but there was also this odd queasiness. It wasn't like the unease you feel holding a company manual. It was anticipation, fear. I don't even know how to describe it. In any case, the manual had already been distributed, and I had to at least attempt to enter. So the question became how. Perhaps a brief ritual before bedtime is in order. I'd love to know your secret to falling asleep so easily, Mr. Roe dear. It's not that. I quietly made my bed. I'm planning to dream the special dream the company told us about. Ah, you're aiming to go to that high school, then? Exactly. Even if it's not this, I'll have to enter some other ghost story anyway. Since only a select few met the conditions for entry each time, the company assigned higher point values for successful entries into this one. Who? In the dead of night at the office stall, I opened the specific book given to me by the company. On a full moon night, read a specific book and fall asleep. You may wake up in a school at night. It was just as squad leader Lee Jahian had explained. What was unusual was that the book was actually a text file. Within the Shadow of Darkness, TXT. This file was rumored to occasionally pop up in the 2000s horror classics compilation, a sketchy collection of novels you could download online, completely disregarding copyright laws. It looked like it could hold enough content for 2 books. But when I opened the file, it all began on our graduation day. That single sentence was the entirety of its content. Then, as I scrolled further, the text broke into gibberish. 1 UB 124 1 UX 00, 1 U 0020, 1 UX 774 1 U 0020, 1 UE 00, 1 UX 744. And after a moment, file cannot be opened. The file vanished. Then, nothing comes easy, I'm going to die of a heart attack at this rate. Just then, I heard cursing from the room next door. Beek Sahian was likely preparing to enter this ghost story too. It was open to all employees, after all. There's a chance we might run into each other inside. Though the odds of Beek Sahian meeting the conditions for entry were slim. This ghost story's entry conditions changed every time it was accessible. But I know the guaranteed entry method mentioned in the mid to late exploration records. I'd already prepared accordingly. The critical question was how much information the employees had at this point. Even if the records aren't fully compiled, rumors might still circulate given the nature of this ghost story. With every employee preparing to enter, this aspect was a bit concerning. Maybe I should check. It seemed like a good time to deter any unnecessary meddling. I walked up to Beek Sahian's door and knocked politely. Knock, knock. What the? I'm coming in. The door creaked open. Beek Sahian glared at me with a mix of surprise, fear, and irritation before forcing a smile. Knocking means waiting for a response like come in. Isn't that basic courtesy? Oh, is that so? I stepped back out and knocked again. Knock, knock. Knock, knock. Knock, knock. Knock, knock. Knock. You little aug, just come in already. I opened the door and gave him a look of feigned pity. The outcome would have been the same either way. Then, you live a really inefficient life, Beek Sahian seemed on the verge of bursting with frustration, but managed to suppress it successfully. It felt like he was finally starting to grasp the basics of social etiquette. What a relief. Anyway, I'm really curious about what made you suddenly decide to barge into someone else's room in the middle of the night for the first time. As he spoke, it seemed like he simultaneously came to his own conclusion. Hey, wait, don't you have to enter the darkness according to the company's instructions too? You know, that high school. Yeah. I figured, so you're preparing for it right now. Beek Sahian's eyes darted greedily toward my open door, scanning the area near my bed's pillow with focused determination. He was obviously trying to squeeze out any hints. Wow. I didn't bother closing the door, smirking openly. Yeah, that's right. Really? I heard you don't know if you'll actually enter until you fall asleep, but you seem so confident. Got some kind of secret method, huh? You sure have a lot of questions. Well, you came all the way to my room, so I figured I should return the favor by listening. I casually threw out. Need a hint? Well, if you're willing to share. Why should I? Then Beek Sahin ground his teeth and forced a smile. How about 3 days' salary transferred to you as a bribe? I don't need money, but I do want to know something. You want to enter, right? Why? A brief but intense conflict flickered across Beek Sahian's face. It wasn't that he didn't want to answer. It was that he was calculating if giving me the reason could somehow benefit him further. Eventually, he came to a decision, speaking with an air of nonchalance. I mean, there's this rumor going around the company. A rumor? Apparently, whatever items you obtain in that ghost story can be brought back into the real world. So, it's a no-brainer to go in and come out with something right. Then they say it's nearly impossible to die in there, too. So that's how the employees currently perceive it. A ghost story labeled as profitable to enter. To be honest, the hints you're offering probably aren't worth much. But hey, as your roommate and coworker, I figured I'd share this intel as a goodwill gesture, Beek Sahian said. Wow, he's really trying to undersell me while posturing as helpful. I purposely put on a serious face as I nodded. You're right, my hints probably aren't worth much. So you don't need them, right? Let's just forget about it. I've learned a lot from what you shared. Hey, this fool. I looked at Beek Sahian calmly. He swallowed his curse, then quickly plastered on a strained smile. Mr. Supervisor, if an employee living in the same dorm is caught extorting a poor junior staffer's salary and personal information, wouldn't a complaint to HR be in order? Good grief. I gave him a look of pity. You really think this company cares about that? Then, well, belief is a personal choice. Then, Beek Sahian seemed trapped between frustration and despair. I suppose this was a good place to draw the line. Fine, I'll give you something. His eyes lit up as I finally spoke up. Put a photo of yourself from high school under your pillow. On the back, write your grade and class and maybe add a short profile, like a yearbook entry. I kindly grabbed a post-it from his desk and even wrote out an example. Name. Message to your friends. Then see what happens. Then Beek Sahian looked skeptical and asked if I'd put a photo of my high school self under my pillow. Without hesitation, I went back to my room and returned with the photo from under my pillow. It was one of my high school pictures, printed from a saved image on my smartphone. Then Beek Sahian stared at it, his disbelief turning into silence. You thought I was lying, didn't you? I mean, usually. You speak so smoothly all the time, so you give off that impression, supervisor. Really, I've never lied in my whole entire life. Then think about it. Beek Sahian looked stunned, so I took the opportunity to usher him out. Anyway, I need to finish preparing with Braun, so you can go now. Best of luck with your entry, Mr. Normal Coworker. Beek Sahian retreated, looking either exasperated or unsettled, and quickly returned to his own room. Bang! Done! Having to keep him in check every time was exhausting, but it couldn't be helped. Consider the new addition to the D-Squad. Workplace survival is all about these little battles. Who? I returned to my bed and approached the pillow. First of all, the tip I gave Beek Sahian was true. Exploration Record 15. Utilizing the Explorer's high school graduation photo, all 3 members of K-Squad successfully entered Sekwang Technical High School. Validity confirmed. Once entry was guaranteed, the next priority was obvious: what to bring. Only items placed under the pillow before falling asleep could be carried into the dream world of Sekwang Technical High School. Given the limited size of what could fit under a pillow, careful selection was necessary. If I store it in my wrist tattoo and it doesn't activate in the dream, I'm doomed. Considering that ghost stories often altered appearances, I couldn't help but feel a bit uneasy. Ultimately, I carefully calculated the space and placed essential items under the pillow, like a game of Tetris. Lastly, I positioned Braun in the coziest corner under the pillow. Of course, Braun ended up in a rather awkward position. Sorry, is it too cramped for you? Intolerable. Were this a studio, I might have called some of the staff, haha. All right, thanks. In other words, he was definitely uncomfortable. I shouldn't push my luck with Braun, who once incinerated entities with a mere snap of his fingers. Carefully, I laid my head on the pillow, making sure not to squish Braun, and willed myself to sleep. This pillow is kind of lumpy. And yet my eyes grew heavy. For someone who had been suffering from insomnia, it was astonishing how quickly drowsiness overcame me despite the discomfort. As slumber quickly took over, mist, shadows, and then, ding dong, a school, ding dong. I opened my eyes. What greeted me was a dimly lit classroom, with not a single light turned on. Looking down at my clothes, I realized I was wearing a school uniform. Black Square High School. The uniform resembled the one from my old school, but the school's name had been scratched off, as if with a needle. While I couldn't check directly, I already knew. My appearance had reverted to how I looked in high school. And then, what is this? Remember the characteristic of this ghost story I mentioned earlier. You don't know if you've entered until you fall asleep. In other words, this meant it wasn't just company employees who could enter. Who? Why am I in a school uniform? Oh my gosh. Excuse me, do you know where we are? In the dim, shadowy classroom. People began to stir one by one from their desks. They looked around in confusion, some screaming as they saw each other. They were civilians who had been dragged into this place by chance. Is this some kind of event? Wait, why am I wearing a uniform? Oh no, why do I look like a high schooler? This has to be a dream. Hey, did you look outside? This looks like the second floor. Feels like being back in that subway ghost story. Watching them waver between panic, fear, curiosity, and amusement, I felt a tightness in my chest and an overwhelming sense of tension. One of the wandering individuals noticed something in the corner of the room. It was a student sitting completely still. Why isn't this person moving? The sight was eerie. In the dim classroom, where people in various uniforms were noisily moving about, one figure sat frozen as if carved from stone. He didn't even blink. The boy, who resembled an intricately crafted wax figure, wore a name tag that was perfectly intact. Sekwang Technical High School. Is this a mannequin? Let's see. Poke. Eck. The person who poked him flinched and withdrew their hand. He's warm. Holy crap, seriously. I got up from my seat. Without taking my eyes off him, I slowly approached the classroom door. I need to open the door in advance. Thud. As I moved nervously, something nearly fell out of the front pocket of my uniform, a small plush keychain. Startled, I caught it just in time. Phew. That was a close call, Braun. Silence. Braun. I held up the plush doll. It hung limply. Panicked, I pressed its belly. The silver serpent coin, the item I used for summoning my good friend, was gone. This was just a plush doll. My good friend hadn't followed me into my dream. Out the window, h. I'm fucking screwed, Braun's not here. What is this? This person he moved. With the silver coin inside the plushie missing, had the good friend ritual been nullified? Or was it simply that, since this was a dream, it only looked like an ordinary doll? Stop it. Trying to figure things out isn't the priority right now. Snap out of it. You're inside a ghost story. Take a look over here. I quickly turned my head. In one dim corner of the classroom, someone screamed. It was the person who had been poking at the student that had sat stiff and unmoving at a desk, like a wax mannequin. But that wax-like mannequin, over there, was gone from the desk. Following the finger of the pale-faced person pointing nearby, I saw it. Sekwang Technical High School. The vanished student was now standing at the back door, holding the door, expressionless, turning his gaze across the classroom. What is this? You're kidding, right? No response, no movement. Hold on a second. A brave individual approached and waved a hand in front of the face of the student. The student didn't even blink. He simply stood frozen in place in front of the back door, perfectly lifelike. He's not breathing. This thing isn't human, it's a mannequin. But how could a mannequin suddenly move? Maybe it's some kind of advanced illusion to make it look like he's not breathing. Right, this must be one of those hidden camera things like on variety shows or YouTube. No. Of course, there were no cameras here, nor was there a production crew waiting to startle people for entertainment. Instead, ding dong ding dong. Students of Sekwang Technical High School, your graduation ceremony will begin shortly. Please gather in the auditorium. Graduation ceremony. The announcement was cheerful, clear, and fitting for a school setting. Should we go? It's kind of interesting. Hey, aren't we back to looking like we did in high school? Wow, what kind of dream is this? Some of the group, having decided this was nothing more than a dream, chatted without any tension. It made sense. So far, nothing truly terrifying had happened. They don't feel the gravity of the situation. After all, they had reverted to their high school selves, and who wouldn't feel good about turning back the clock? A school at night may often serve as the backdrop for ghost stories, but with a group of people and a touch of moonlight, it could even feel romantic. However, hey, this mannequin student, take a closer look. One person approached the unmoving student by the back door. The student was pointing a hand backward. It looks like his hand is signaling something. For heating and safety, we will now close the automatic curtains and adjust the lighting. It looks like he was about to lock the door. Bang! The curtain slammed shut. Whoa! That startled me. With a deafening sound, the automatic curtains closed, plunging the classroom into darkness for a brief moment. Blink! After a delay, the lights in the classroom turned on. Oh, thank goodness. Looks like they were just adjusting the lights. Wait, what? Blood was pooling on the beige classroom floor. What is that? Following the trail of blood upward, everyone's gaze landed on a person. One person from the group was slumped near the back door, neck twisted completely backward. A grotesque amount of blood poured from the impossibly angled neck, seeping into the cracks of the flooring. Eyes, wide with shock, seemed to suggest it was a fate that was never once anticipated. Ugh, it had begun. Dark Exploration Record / Ghost Story. In the Shadow of Darkness. A ghost story featured in Daydream Inc., Identification Code Q-Turwa, -62. Disaster Management Bureau Registration Number 2845 SIA 2016. Koha Enus, 53. According to the story, reading the infamous text file before falling asleep causes you to awaken in Sekwang Technical High School at night, where you are pursued by inhuman entities until your death. All civilian attempts to locate the real Sekwang Technical High School have failed, and it is understood to be a place that does not exist in present-day Korea. Right. The only escape from this nightmarish ghost story is through death. To leave this school at night, there is no other option but to die. And as with all too many ghost stories, where inhuman entities feature prominently, this one has become a horrifying cliché. That person. One of the people screaming raised a trembling finger to point at the student still frozen by the back door. But there was one significant difference. His hand it's covered in blood. The crowd turned their stiff, horrified gazes toward the student again. And they confirmed the fact. On the inside of the curled fingers of the student, as if trying to hide it, blood was smeared along the fingerprints. Their eyes shifted back to the corpse. Behind the corpse's grotesquely twisted neck, there were bloody marks shaped like fingers. Aya. Mom, no, Aya. And then again. Blink. The lights flickered. The student of Sekwang Technical High School doesn't move as long as someone is watching him. But the moment no one's eyes are on them. In the blink of an eye, when the classroom lights brighten again. He'd move. Inhumanly fast. The person who had been pointing at the mannequin was gone. Yak. Found on the floor, body shattered below the chest. Thud. The lifeless arm that had been pointing fell to the ground limply. Panic, fear, and hysteria erupted. And now we have to attack it now. Someone close to it just hit it. Fuck, why are you yelling at me? Why don't you do it yourself? Blink. Hieka. Another corpse appeared. One of the shouting people was impaled on a desk, hanging upside down. Only the lower half of their body remained. In the terrifying silence, the remaining people turned their heads. The student by the back door was now staring intently at them. A strange smile crept across his face. Run, get out of here. Open the door now. The group rushed toward the front door, avoiding the student blocking the back door. But it was already too late. Over here, Ayug. The person who opened the front door collapsed in shock. Standing in the doorway was another smiling student. Sekwang Technical High School. This female student with neatly trimmed bangs wore the same name tag. Just go around them. Move now. The group ran past the smiling student. And again. Blink. The student by the front door disappeared from my sight. The hallway filled with anguished screams. One by one, the screams faded. And then silence. Suffocating silence. The sound of labored breathing, distant cries, and the frantic stares of those left in the classroom fixed on the doors. Slowly. I said softly, scanning the room. Let's move slowly and see if anything reacts. Keep an eye on both the front and back doors. Adults, who now looked like high school students, trembled as they staggered back from the doors. Among those who had awakened in this classroom, half had fled, their fates unknown. The other half remained. Or rather, they were too paralyzed to move. In the midst of this chaos, I thought quietly to myself, this is a disaster. I shouldn't have stayed still at the start. Before the curtains closed, plunging us into total darkness, I should have sprinted out alone, grabbed an emergency flashlight, and settled into a good hiding spot. I missed my chance. I had hesitated, panicked by the realization that Braun wasn't here. By now, a few people were starting to catch on to the situation. This is just like that thing. Huh. You don't know, the kind of monster that can't move while you're watching. Wait, you mean you've seen this before? Hey, why don't you get it? It's like that monster that follows you when you're not looking. As long as we're looking at it, it can't move. The voice of the person speaking was distorted by fear and excitement as they rambled on, asking if everyone had read some weird text file, suggesting we were inside a game, or wondering if this was possession. Normally, people would have ignored such wild claims, but in their panic, they listened intently. This was a progression I'd seen countless times before. And the conclusion reached by a fear-stricken group is always simplistic and extreme. In that case, we should just attack it, destroy it. What? If we try to run, it'll just keep chasing us no matter what. Didn't you see what happened to the people who left? They all died. Hurry, before the lights flicker again. As if hypnotized, people started scouring the empty classroom for anything that could be used as a weapon. Brooms, chairs, mops, box cutters. No. This was a shortcut to the most typical bad ending. Wait a moment, please. Just then, someone covered my mouth. I nearly threw a punch out of reflex. Forcing myself to remain calm, I slowly turned my head to see who had silenced me. Our eyes met. It was a familiar face. A civil servant. It was an agent from the Disaster Management Bureau. Agent Ryu Yiquan, whom I'd encountered at the mountain lodge. His hair was now cropped short like a high school student's, but his features were unmistakably the same. Where had he been sitting all this time? No, that wasn't the issue here. Right, even civil servants can end up here too. This wasn't one of Daydream Inc.'s secured and contained ghost stories. That meant it wasn't impossible to encounter someone from another agency in a place like this. But still, running into the same agent again, wasn't he working way too hard? If you don't scream, I'll let you go. I quickly nodded with a serious expression, and the agent released me without further comment. Phew. You really do have a knack for getting caught up in situations like this, don't you? Yes. Let's just leave it at that. And some of what that person said earlier is correct. Keep your eyes on that student mannequin at all times. Don't look away and make sure you blink alternately. If the lights go out, immediately lower your head. Also. The agent leaned in and whispered the proper protocol, clearly well-versed in handling this kind of situation. They're very sensitive to sound. That's right. These students were strongly drawn to people who screamed, cursed, or shouted. Under no circumstances should you raise your voice, ever. I nodded slightly. But is it really okay to just let them attack that thing? Right now, your own safety is the priority. Rescuing others caught in this disaster comes second. The agent delivered the line with practiced precision. When dealing with a supernatural disaster, assume everyone involved will die and act accordingly. This was textbook Disaster Management Bureau protocol. They prioritize identifying, sealing, or destroying the ghost story to prevent further casualties. It was a utilitarian judgment, akin to pulling the lever in the trolley dilemma without hesitation, choosing to sacrifice one life to save 5. I'll let you know when it's time to run. For now, just follow the instructions I've given you. Understood. Arguing with the agent here would be suicidal. For now, I kept my mouth shut. Meanwhile, the others were already armed and approaching the student mannequin. Fucking. I deliberately asked another question to guide the agent's response. I needed to know more to make my actions seem natural going forward. But isn't this a dream? If that's the case, wouldn't we just wake up even if we die here? That was the classic escape method from a nightmare. At the moment of death in the dream, you wake up and return to reality. Hearing that, one might think that quickly taking your own life is the best option, but that's completely wrong. Such a choice should never be made. There's something you need. That's correct, but there are conditions. Exactly. Conditions. Yes, do you see that name tag? The agent pointed to the student mannequin. You must die while in possession of that mannequin's name tag to wake up properly. If you fail to meet this condition, if the escape conditions are not fulfilled, the explorer becomes trapped in the shadow of darkness. You will suffer undesirable effects. There are also a few other conditions for dying safely, but I'll explain them as we go. Together. Yes. Wait a second. However, the agent, perhaps interpreting my hesitation differently, gave me a look as if to say, "Don't feel bad about it." It was an awkward attempt to reassure me with a forced smile. "Don't worry, there are many agents deployed here besides me. Someone will surely make it through." More than one disaster management bureau agent. This really must be an overlap in exploration timing. There must have been a relevant entry in the exploration logs. I tried to sift through past records in my mind, but before I could identify any, the situation shifted. D-die. The others finally began attacking the student mannequin. And surprisingly, crack, ek, B blood. The Sekwang Technical High School student bled, as though they were an ordinary human. The sound of bones breaking, blood spilling, and bruises forming echoed around the room. Aya. What do we do? Oh shit. Who? Fear and unease ran down my spine. However, the agent, calm as if this was routine, gestured discreetly toward the front door. For now, we should use this distraction to hum. That's when it happened. Figures appeared on the brightly lit central staircase, visible through the open front door. 3 or 4 figures moved quietly, their footsteps muffled as they ascended. They shared a common feature. Each of them wore strange animal masks. Company employees. What's more, I recognized one of the masks. Bison. Jang Hee-won. It was the rookie from the Y Squad, with whom I'd endured the theme park ghost story. Did he get reassigned to a regular squad? It had been a while. My recent chaos had kept me too busy to track other people's transfers, but it seemed he'd survived his first 3 months unscathed. At least that's good news. But next to him, a less welcome sight. A black goat mask. It was Beek Sahian. Did they wake up in the same class? Both were faithfully following the company's safety recommendation to wear your mask whenever possible. I'd like to wear mine too if I could. I wanted to check my items and use them to improve my chances of escape. Overall, it seemed the best course of action would be to separate naturally from the agent and join that group. Mr. Agent. Daydream Inc. Be careful. If you encounter someone in animal masks and business suits in a place like this, never acknowledge them. The agent gritted his teeth and cast a disdainful glare toward the group. They're likely dispatched from that disgusting pseudo-corporation. Avoid any involvement with them at all costs. The majority of their employees are unethical psychopaths. You must be cautious. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Don't let him find out who I am. A brightly lit classroom within the ghost story. Die. Behind me, people were desperately striking at the unmoving, eerie student. Let's wait until they pass by. In front of me, The government agent glared at my fellow company employees walking by, his gaze a mix of wariness and disdain. And stuck in between them, me. No colleagues missed timing, and the task of clearing this nightmare of a ghost story safely, while pretending to be an innocent civilian to the agent beside me. The truth, I'm actually from the pharmaceutical company this agent loathes. Then, how much harder can this get? This is insane. The employees had moved far ahead by now. I might have made eye contact with a few of them, but as I avoided their gaze, they refrained from approaching me and walked off quickly. At least that was a relief. For a moment, flicker, the lights went out again. Hieka. This time, however, people reacted faster than the incoming darkness. It's not moving. It worked. I took a deep breath. When the lights flickered back on, the Sekwang Technical High School student, who had been frozen like a statue, was now lying on the floor near the back door. Waya! The frenzied attacks had evidently worked. This time, even when the lights went out, the student couldn't move. Instead, it appeared to have succumbed to the accumulated violence and now lay on the floor as though dead. However, its outstretched right hand still reached toward the back door, as if trying to grab hold of it. Then, the people cheered in triumph, holding bloodied mops and chairs in their hands. It worked, this is it. Then, we need to run. When one student entity becomes immobilized, resembling biological death. Quickly, all nearby student entities are summoned to the scene. Ding dong, ding dong. A death has occurred in Class 1-5. The school's announcement played over the intercom. The voice was heavier this time, somber. A slow funeral march played in the background. Now, the agent poked me in the back. Run. The deceased is first-year student Lee Waniol. I immediately bolted out the door. I tried to take in as much of the hallway's layout as possible while running, noting key details and pressing myself close to a nearby wall to minimize my profile. Should we press our backs to the wall? Exactly. Let us observe a moment of silence for 5 seconds. I complied without resistance as the agent pushed me to sit against the wall. Then, thug, the lights went out. 5. Through the faint sound of the funeral march came the creak of the back door opening. 4. H. Ek. W. What Qg. 3. Help. Huck. 2. Screams. Short, desperate screams. 1. Silence. The funeral march continued. The moment of silence is over. May the deceased rest in peace. Forcing my trembling head up, I looked back into the classroom. I had to look. Flicker. As the lights returned, the scene came into focus. The classroom was a wreck, smeared with blood and filth. Bodies were strewn everywhere, slammed against walls, collapsed on the floor, or sprawled across desks. And among the carnage, only 2 figures remained standing. 2 Sekwang Technical High School students, frozen by my gaze. One stood atop a decapitated corpse, while the other smiled as it clutched the front door, staring at me. They'd noticed me. Damn it. Sweat dripped down my chin. I'll step back just slightly. I'll continue to stay in view of the classroom. The agent gave a slight nod. Still keeping my eyes on the front, I groped along the wall, retreating cautiously. The reason I'd chosen this wall. Portable light source. A red emergency flashlight was mounted nearby. It was an essential tool, a portable light source capable of freezing the students even during a blackout. Absolutely necessary. However, where 3 lights should have been mounted, only one remained. The employees must have taken the others. What surprised me was that, even with Beek Sahian among their group, they hadn't taken all 3 lights for backup. On top of that, they'd cleverly inserted a wad of paper into the release sensor to prevent the alarm from sounding when the lights were removed. Clearly, these were experienced ghost story explorers. They had even left behind one of the crumpled papers in the empty slot. They thought that far ahead. Reaching back, I grabbed the paper. As I brought it forward, the folded back of the paper caught the edge of my vision. That. Not bad. I crumpled Beek Sahian's note, shoved it into the sensor slot as a makeshift stopper, and extracted the flashlight. Who? With this, I had taken the first step in preparing for potential blackouts. Next, did you grab the flashlight? Yes. Excellent, keep it on at all times. Now let's retrieve the name tags. The agent strode briskly toward the classroom's front door, right up to the face of the student entity that was glaring at me. Who? Just watching the scene made every alarm in my head scream. Yet the agent moved swiftly and tore the name tag from the mannequin's chest. Then, without hesitation, he collected the tag from the entity lying by the back door, the first one to die. I could feel my stomach churn. This is an irreversible move. When a student's name tag is stolen in its presence, that student will pursue the thief relentlessly until you die. Given that the students had already locked eyes with us, perhaps it was a foregone conclusion. No matter what, they'll chase us. Even with a flashlight, moving through this haunted school while being hunted by 2 entities was sheer madness for an ordinary person. It was a choice only a disaster management bureau agent, equipped with tools and experience, could reasonably make. Still, I would have done it differently. But spilled milk is spilled milk. Thinking rationally, I had to admit. Being discovered by the agent was far riskier than dying within this nightmare. Not only would death here be just an unfortunate side note, but I'd likely face interrogation and an investigation. I have no choice but to trust the agent's judgment for now. Still, I had to hold my weight, at least do my part. If I'm going to act, it needs to be now. As the agent moved, I followed him into the classroom. I reached toward the student by the back door and snatched their name tag. Oog! This was nerve-wracking. The unmoving student, frozen in place, seemed ready to whip around and crush my skull at any moment. But nothing happened, and I succeeded. Who? As my hand trembled with a mix of relief and revulsion, I heard something. Save me. I froze. Then the student entity appeared to be stepping on a severed neck, but there was more. Beneath them, someone was still alive. Tears streamed down the face of the survivor, who whispered weakly, as though they lacked the strength to scream or curse. Please. Then, after a brief but fierce internal debate, I made my decision. Hicksab okay. I couldn't be sure since my gaze was fixed on the student entity, but it seemed like the person beneath them gave a faint nod. Then, slowly, I backed away and rejoined the agent. Together, we exited the classroom and began moving swiftly down the corridor. Keep looking ahead. I'll keep an eye on the classroom. Understood. The agent turned on his flashlight, focusing on the back of the entity that had been watching us from the front door. Meanwhile, I kept my eyes on the corridor, ready to freeze any new entities that might appear. We hugged the wall as we moved, ensuring no blind spots for either of us. Then, our movements were silent yet desperate. Finally, as the classroom faded from view, and I was certain one of the 2 entities was no longer visible, the agent muttered in confusion. Why aren't they chasing us? Don't tell me. A ripple of unease emanated from the agent's back, pressed against mine. Was there someone alive in the room, Are they watching the students? Yes. The agent exhaled deeply. They must have been too injured to move. You did well. During a disaster, securing your own safety comes first. Helping others comes after. Then head for the staircase. We'll stop briefly by the fire hydrant. Understood. I resumed walking. And then, flicker. The lights went out again. I'm shining the flashlight. Yes. I kept moving forward, and that's when it hit me. During the blackout just now, the person I'd given the name tag to had died. They're coming. The two entities would be leaving the classroom now. But since my job was to watch the front and freeze anything new that appeared, I couldn't look back to confirm it. The thought alone made my hair stand on end. Do not panic, you still have a chance. Then, you obtained a name tag earlier, correct? Yes. Good, now you just need to commit suicide. I almost passed out. Let's do it as soon as we stop by the emergency light. You look so pale, it'd be best for you to wake from this nightmare quickly. With the name tag, there shouldn't be any issues. Wait, but there's something. I swallowed hard. I did acquire a name tag, but I no longer have it in my possession. I gave it to the person who was alive in the classroom. That's right. Earlier, I deliberately dropped the name tag on the floor so the person beneath the student could grab it. If you hold on to this, you'll wake up from this dream. Hick sobbed, okay. Since they have the name tag, they'll wake up safely. And they even bought us some time by doing so. The agent let out a sharp breath, heavy with frustration and stress. Then, in a more fatigued and businesslike tone, he spoke. You must have assumed I had a spare name tag. No, you don't need to give me one. That's something you obtained yourself. Then, you need more name tags, don't you? You'll likely need to distribute them to your colleagues. That's, of course. I wasn't saying this because I was a fool with no plan. I'm fine, really. Why? Because I never intended to acquire a name tag and commit suicide in the first place. Exploration Record 13. The log I had used as the basis for my escape plan, the wiki entry I had written, was the record of an explorer who had never obtained a name tag to begin with. I had analyzed this ghost story extensively, thinking through its variables, and had come to one conclusion. To clear this without physically dying, you need to perform a specific action without possessing a name tag. Moreover, this method allowed you to bring back the highest grade dream essence solution as a reward. So I have to do it. The D Squad, or rather, my new squad, needed proof that I could maintain similar levels of performance even under unfamiliar circumstances. Do you know what happens if you die without a name tag? I do. Each new moon, you'll be dragged back here when you sleep. And when you wake up, you won't remember anything, making it impossible to prepare. Then, can you handle that? I probably couldn't, but I didn't have much choice. Ideally, carrying the name tag until the critical moment, and then relinquishing ownership would be the safest strategy. But with this agent as my companion, there was no way I could obtain a name tag and later abandon it. So instead, I chose to take the risk and give it away. There will be another opportunity. Even if there were, I'd give it up again. At least as long as I was traveling with this agent. And I'll handle that opportunity myself. Don't worry, I won't ask you for anything. Then, at this point, it was worth trying. I decided to push forward with a determined tone. We should part ways here. If you need it, I'll even give you my flashlight. I brought a high-powered flashlight anyway, along with several other tools. As long as I separated from him, I could stop pretending to be a civilian and use them. Separation was the key. Though walking alone would be terrifying, staying in this restrained state wasn't viable either. Whether it was with civilians or my coworkers, any other group would be better. I need to join a larger group. This ghost story structure made it safer the more eyes were watching, but it grew riskier the louder things got. I need to form a party of around 4 people quickly. With my connection to Daydream Inc., posing a constant threat, traveling with this agent wasn't an option. I needed a scenario where I could act more decisively. I'll pretend to give in and suggest parting ways. I feel like I'm just getting in your way. I'll figure things out on my own somehow. After all, didn't you say civilians caught in disasters are as good as dead? Consider this an unavoidable situation and move on. But then an unexpected response came. I believe apologies are in order. The agent looked at me with a resolute expression, as if he'd made an unshakable decision. As soon as you obtained the name tag, I was planning to humanely execute you. Excuse me. This lunatic. Even if you wake up after dying, to say something like that so casually, right to someone's face. Feeling cold sweat trickling down my back, I forced a smile. Ah, yes, even in a dream, suicide isn't exactly an easy thing to do. Indeed. However, if you're willing, I'd like you to accompany me for the remainder of this disaster investigation. What? The agent spoke quickly. Temporarily, you could act as an agent. Normally, this would require approval from another agent since it isn't a solo mission, but the agent rummaged through his pocket and handed me something. If you consume this, it will serve as an expedited authorization. I looked at the small caramel candy, wrapped in a rectangular foil, that had landed in my hand and felt my eyelids twitch. This was Disaster Management Bureau equipment. Equals. Tangy sweet. A caramel-like chewy candy. Upon consumption, lying induces unbearable discomfort, compelling the user to tell the truth. Equals. This is a light truth verification procedure. No, this is practically a confession-inducing torture tool. If you take this and accompany me, you'll be compensated accordingly. If it's too difficult, I'll simply give you a name tag and execute you to send you back. Wow, for real. Civilian. If only I could fake eating it and stash it in my tattoo. But in this dream where I'd fully reverted to a high schooler, I had no tattoos. After an intense internal debate, I made my decision. All right. I reluctantly chewed and swallowed the truth-inducing candy. Its tangy sweet flavor caught in my throat, but I forced it down. Getting caught throwing it away or not consuming it would be a bigger problem. It would reveal that I knew exactly what this candy was. I've swallowed it. Tears welled up. But as they say, the stick is often accompanied by the carrot. To my surprise, the unexpected carrots started rolling in. Well done, now take this. The agent swiftly handed me something else, placing it in my empty hand. It was a metallic badge, vaguely resembling a silver heart. This is an identification badge for agents. Wearing it will allow you to receive assistance if you encounter other agents. And this. No sooner had I clipped the badge on than a small ivory-colored pistol was placed in my hand. The translucent cylinder gleamed with multicolored glass beads that served as its ammunition. It looked extraordinary at a glance. Equals. Glass handgun. A specialized exorcism pistol manufactured by the Disaster Management Bureau. It uses custom glass beads as ammunition and is so compact it resembles a toy or lighter. Equals. This is a weapon for dealing with supernatural disasters. It should be effective against those students. Keep it with you. Wow. This was the standard issue gear for Disaster Management Bureau agents, the kind I'd only ever seen on the wiki. Like the Dream Essence collectors and masks used by Daydream Inc., this was iconic agent gear. And now I'm wearing it all. Somehow, I'd ended up playing the part of a Disaster Management Bureau agent. What is even happening? It was absurd but oddly thrilling. At the same time, I had a strong urge to run for my life. But for now, there's no time to dwell on this. It's starting. Flicker. We're almost at the end of the hallway. From here on, you must also face this way. Do not, under any circumstances, drop the flashlight. I adjusted my grip on the unfamiliar pistol. They're coming. The agent and I pressed our backs against the wall, our gazes fixed on the hallway ahead, specifically Class 1-5 from which we had just escaped. Then I finally saw it. Flicker. On the far end of the hallway, mannequin-like figures appeared. 3 of them. Another one had joined the group. 2 male students and 1 female student. The 2 who had emerged from the classroom were drenched in blood, smiling as they looked our way, while the third, still wearing a pristine school uniform, stood motionless. When the lights were on, they looked like grotesquely realistic wax mannequins or people frozen in time in a photograph. But every time the lights flickered out. Flicker. They reappeared closer to us. Again and again. Even when we moved further back. Flicker. They advanced just to the edge of the flashlight's beam. Whenever the light shone on them, they froze, illuminated in a terrifyingly close pose. They never got any farther away. Flicker. I couldn't help but imagine what would happen if the flashlight's battery ran out. This standoff would end, and not in our favor. Even as I moved carefully and deliberately, fear clawed at my mind. Eventually, we reached the dead end at the hallway's farthest point and were forced to stop. And then, ding dong ding dong. A death has occurred in Class 3-2. Motherfucker. The deceased is third-year student Park Kia. Please observe a moment of silence for 5 seconds. Get ready. I gripped the flashlight tightly and pressed my back against the wall. 5. I quickly swept the flashlight across all 3 figures. Each time the light passed over them and returned, they were closer. 4. The agent and I divided our focus, aiming our flashlights at 2 of the entities. But what about the third? 3. The third one, where was it? I swung my flashlight side to side, covering every blind spot, but it was nowhere to be found. 2. Time seemed to speed up with my mounting anxiety. Where could it be? Where? I whipped the flashlight downward. 1. The light revealed my feet and a blood-stained white hand reaching for my ankle. A hand in a school uniform. A Sekwang Technical High School student lay sprawled on the floor, grinning up at me. The moment of silence is over. May the deceased rest in peace. Slowly, I pulled my foot back. Shit. If my reflexes had been even slightly slower, I'd be dead. I've never even played a VR horror game, and now I'm experiencing this in real life. I alternated blinking one eye at a time, making sure to never close both at once, as I slowly backpedaled. My limbs trembled uncontrollably. The agent, still glaring at the remaining 2 student entities, spoke. Once we leave a floor, the students from that grade level usually stop actively pursuing us. I knew that. If there were still prey left on their floor, the students would likely prioritize those over us. Let's head upstairs. Not down to the first floor. No, this mission's objective is the 5th floor, specifically the auditorium. Immediately, I recalled the announcement we'd heard at the very beginning. Students of Sekwang Technical High School, the graduation ceremony will begin shortly. Please gather in the auditorium. What's in the auditorium? There's no information yet. That's why we need to investigate. Of course, the exploration logs so far are still considered early to mid-stage material in the few people would have willingly gone to the place, announced as the meeting point in this nightmare school. And those who tried to ascend likely encountered the students and died. The higher the floor, the more aggressive, unpredictable, and intelligent the students' behavior became. And the greater problem was this: never go to the fifth floor. It's better to die on the lower floors. Never go up. Final log of exploration record 12. This is what happens when you somehow manage to make it all the way to the fifth floor. I really don't want to go. But the most painful part was knowing that I'd have to go there eventually, regardless. At least I could take some comfort in having a companion. But as we wouldn't make it. I needed to prepare thoroughly, and I had an idea to adjust the plan slightly. Would it be all right if we stopped briefly to explore the third and fourth floors as well? Is there a reason? Well, this setup feels strangely like a horror game to me. In games, obtaining key items is often essential to progress. I spoke while slowly climbing the stairs backward. I'm not sure, but if it were me, I'd start by checking special rooms, like the music room, science lab, or faculty office. I'd also look into the yearbook or student records. I think there could be hints or keys hidden in objects or props. As we continued up the stairs, the distance between us and the students that had been surrounding us grew, allowing the flashlight beam to cover a wider area and keep them in check. It was only then that the agent finally spoke. Our analysis team reached a similar conclusion, that this ghost story seems to have a game-based structure. They noted how the name of the fictional high school and the structure of running and hiding from monsters are remarkably similar to a game. I thought the same thing. But it's the first time I've heard such a suggestion, to focus not on monsters or people, but on objects. For some reason, the agent's eyes seemed to sparkle. Since he looked like a high school student without dark circles under his eyes, it didn't come off as out of place. Very well, let's examine the spaces as thoroughly as we can. We'll also relay this idea to the other agents once they join us. More agents, I'd rather not. But the agent, as if excited, went a step further. Now that you're a temporary agent, we should call each other by code names. Do you have a preferred code name? Oh my God. Oh, we typically use historical materials for code names. Non-ordinary terms make it easier to distinguish between agents. He's even letting me pick a code name. It felt like they were fulfilling every conceivable fantasy. Oh, did I already have a code name I wanted to use for a disaster management bureau agent in the darkness exploration records I'd envisioned? Yes, I do, but I had enough self-awareness not to bring it up now. It would be far too embarrassing. I'll go with grapes. A fruit, simple and neat, I like it. For a moment, I imagined what Braun would have commented on my choice. I miss that guy a little. Pushing away the sense of loss over my good friend, I kept the conversation going. And what should I call you, Agent? My code name is Bronze. All right, Agent Bronze. The Agent Bronze smiled faintly and nodded in satisfaction, almost as if he were looking at an intern. Lately, I've been getting a lot of new recruit-like treatment. Is it just my imagination? In any case, we continued checking below as we ascended, keeping a vigilant eye out to ensure no students were following us up the stairs. One of us always kept an eye on the upper floor. And finally we arrived. 3F. The third floor, where the second year stayed. It's quiet. The students from the lower floor had naturally left our line of sight and didn't appear at the top of the stairs either. It seemed they had found someone else to chase. Still, we kept glancing back at the stairwell as we stepped into the third-floor hallway. Under the bright ceiling lights, the hallway was surprisingly clean. No blood, no filth, no corpses. Not even people sitting frozen, tears streaming as they stared desperately at a student. Even the student entities were nowhere to be seen. And I thought I knew why. They've sealed the doors. Someone had already locked all the classroom doors. Chains and padlocks were even looped around some. This has to be the work of Daydream Inc. employees. It matched our manual perfectly. Students in Sekwang Technical High School uniforms exhibit some resistance to damage or destruction of school property. When not provoked, closing and locking doors quietly has been observed to render them inactive, often seated at desks. Moreover, sealing the doors like this meant any attempt to open them from inside would make noise. That noise would immediately alert others to turn and look. It's a basic safety measure. When there were still plenty of people around to restrict the movements of the student entities, sneaking around and locking doors like this would have been quite feasible. But as quiet as the hallway was, we needed to be just as silent. The students are drawn by noise. The second-year faculty office is just around the corner. Should we crawl there? A nod. With a brief whisper and nod, we ended the conversation and began moving quietly, staying close to the wall and crawling to avoid detection. Even as we moved, we didn't stop watching the corners, places like the end of the hallway or the stairwells, where someone could appear silently. Cold sweat ran down my back. Just a little further, just a little more. Slowly. We just had to pass through without rushing. We had made it more than halfway when a blood-curdling scream came from beyond the hallway. No. If there's noise. Rattle. Rattle, 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 rattle. I couldn't bring myself to look up. The sound of doorknobs being rattled echoed from every locked door. The students had heard the noise too. Rattle, 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 rattle. The agent and I crawled frantically down the hallway, desperate to escape. When we finally turned to look back. Rattle. Who? Fortunately, the rattling stopped, likely because the scream had been a one-time occurrence. However, I could see faint shadows of figures standing behind some of the doors, peering out. Terrifying. At least they weren't looking in our direction. That was our one saving grace. I swallowed hard. The only consolation was that we'd reached our first destination. Second-year faculty office. Turning the corner, it appeared before us. But this office was also locked up tight. Chains and padlocks secured the doors, and the windows had been covered from the inside with something like newspaper, preventing us from seeing in. It was eerily unsettling, yet I couldn't have been more relieved to see it. Please keep watch for a moment. The agent slipped a thimble-like item onto his finger, then inserted it into the lock on the faculty office door. Though the thimble didn't seem to match the size of the keyhole, it slid in easily, and the lock clicked open. Wow! Disaster Management Bureau equipment really lived up to the hype. There may still be students inside, so let's be cautious as we enter. And when we opened the door, what greeted us was completely unexpected. Quietly closed the door. Quickly, I shut the door behind us. There were no students inside. Instead, about 7 people were locked in a tense standoff, glaring at one another. High schoolers wearing animal masks stood on one side, and others, holding translucent pistols, stood on the other. Disaster Management Bureau agents and Daydream Inc. employees. They're fighting. On the table in the center of their standoff was a single fountain pen. Then item. I recognized it immediately. Fountain pen of second-year student black. It seemed they were locked in a standoff over who would claim it. Instead of exploring the ghost story, they're wasting manpower on this. It seemed they hadn't noticed our entrance until it was too late. Agent Bronze. Several of the agents finally spotted the codename Bronze beside me and greeted him warmly. But Bronze, rational as always, was unlikely to empathize with the situation. Let's join them. They. Wait, what? Before I could protest, Bronze had already stepped forward to join the agents. And as for me, the animal-masked daydream employees were staring intently at me, especially the two who recognized me. Seeing Beek Sahian and Jang Hyun make identical expressions was not something I ever thought I'd experience. Their eyes darted between the disaster management bureau's metal badge and translucent pistol I was holding, as if silently asking, "Why are you here?" And yet the agent called out to me again. "Agent Grapes." "GR Grapes." The agent responded coldly. "Mocking codenames, truly fitting for a company like yours." I'm losing my mind. "Come here, you should step away from the door." What now? After a moment of frantic deliberation, I made my decision. I can't bring myself to betray. Reluctantly, I stepped forward and stood beside the agent. "Yes, agent." Right next to Agent Bronze. "This what is?" "Yes, I cannot betray. I can't betray my own survival." And so it came to this, my dear coworkers. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story. And if have any suggestion to a new novel or want next part of any series, comment down. Our target is to get 1K subscriber. There will be SUPRISC for all of you. Stay tuned.